by the way, started as mayor way back in 2012. I'm sure you know this, but that job is full-time city administrator responsible for 10 departments providing traditional municipal services, including public safety, public works, community development, parks, and library. The city does a lot for a population of 36,000. Annual budget now is 141 million. That sounds like a whole lot. But I think it includes the, and you're going to probably talk about this anyway, but includes the Library Commons project, of course, and the Fire Station 3 remodel, if my notes are correct. Jill is committed to a municipal government that is efficient, adaptable, and dignified, and I really think that you've seen that over the years. She has brought and continues to provide creative energy, which I think you're going to hear about in all the things that she will be talking about. And the community engagement has been tremendous during those years. I hope that your presentation today is sort of part of like a victory lap. You're allowed a 6-7 month victory lap because you've done so much. And I think we should applaud her even before she starts speaking. Mayor Boudreau.
Hello, everybody. I think I might need to turn on this mic, Candy, but I can't see it. If you didn't realize, they're live streaming, and it's being recorded so folks can watch it on our city YouTube channel. So thanks to this is Candy. So thanks to Candy Galindo and our TV 10 service for that. So hello, everyone. There's going to be some slides, and I might try and walk around in a little bit. But it's really exciting to be here. I have to say, COVID brought on a lot of social anxiety in crowds for me. And so where's Maria? I'm nervous. I'm nervous too. So thank you for the kindness that I'm sure you'll offer as we go through some information today. You know, it's been amazing, and Andy had invited me to share a little bit about what has occurred in the city over the last almost 12 years. And so I'll be doing that today, just sharing a little bit of the things that I think are important that you may like to know about. But first off, I'd love to know in the room, how many of you were here in 2012? So there's a lot of folks that may have not either met me before or really know a little bit about what coming into a public office is about. But I love the quote that you'll see up here, because I think people may describe me like this. And it says, if I seem too passionate, it's because I care. If I come on strong, it's because I feel strongly. And if I push too hard, it's because things are not moving fast enough. And I think that would probably encapsulate folks that work close to me, is a little bit about how I am. I want to also recognize the team members that are here today from the city, the director and leadership team. So I'm going to read their names, and then they're going to hate me, and I'm going to ask them to stand up because I'd love if you would acknowledge them. Doug Valesky from our finance department, Chief Brian Bryce from fire, Aaron Cater in our human resources department, Kevin Rogerson, our city attorney, Jennifer Berner, our parks and enrichment services director, and Isaac, our library director. If you don't mind thanking them for their work. The success of any organization, as you know, is not just one person, it's an amazing team. And part of that amazing team is Council Member Mary Hudson, who is a council member here today. So thank you, Mary. Who is not only a colleague, but I count you as a friend. Thank you. I want to thank the Chamber, because the partnership and the success of any community is many things. It's not simply just the government. But the Chamber of Commerce is really important, and you may have not realized that they were an integral partner in our summer concert series when it first started several years ago. So thank you for that. If you haven't been down and danced on the riverfront, it's certainly something to look forward to every summer. So thank you, Andy, and you disappeared on me, but thank you, Andy, for your team. There he is, for working on that. It's an amazing part of our community. So when you reflect on time that you've spent in leadership, and I'm not the only leader in this room, so maybe this might resonate for you, is you kind of remember, well, why did I do this in the first place? And so the folks pictured here are my beloved family. And this is why I decided to run for office in the first place in 2001. People that want to lead, want to make things better for their community, for their family, for their children, for that opportunity. And so this is why I decided to run when I did. I never anticipated holding public office, I'll be honest. I wanted to be a small business owner my whole life. And being a military spouse, for 20 years, we moved all over the world. And so my resume wasn't exactly linear. You may not know the backstory of how I started in municipal government. And I was hired as the receptionist at the Mount Vernon Police Department in 2002. At the time, the Chief Mike Barsness, when we came new to the community, it was a civil service position. It was right after 9/11. No one was hiring. My role was to go back to work so my husband could go back to school, retiring from the military and wanting to be a teacher. So when I was looking for jobs in civil service, I'm like, I can test really great at anything. So came out number one on the list, sat down with Chief Barsness, and he said to me, you're overqualified, and why should I hire you? And he was always a very stern man to a lot of people. And I was just honest. I said, okay, I am, but I'm gonna work really hard for you. I'm putting my husband through school, and I'm gonna look for other things to do. And so he took a chance, and I started at the police department, the picture on the left, in records, at the front counter. He then asked me to be the public information officer as well as the receptionist. And then about 6 months in, I went to him and I said, but I really want to do that job. And that was a community service officer position. And so tested for that and served most of my time, 8 years at the department as a community service officer. So that's where you see the second picture in the middle with some dear teammates. That's where I learned about municipal government. I learned the example of safe and enjoyable community living. I learned of the humility of the police department and all our city services, that 250 employees cannot do it alone. When you're serving 36,000 people, we need our community as partners. We need that collaboration, and we need to develop trust and faith to make our community safe and enjoyable. And it was really struck by that. So when the chance came, or the idea came, admittedly over some wine and a bunco game, I'll tell you that's how this all started, was, Jill, you should run. And I thought, okay, anyone can run in the United States. This is the beauty of democracy. And so I did feel, though, that leadership should be held to higher standards and to truth, and to serving the entire community as a whole, as I learned at the police department. The role of mayor is independent. It is not a partisan office. I've never been a member of a political party because I don't believe that it should be parties versus the people. I think it should be the people first. And so that's how I approached the idea of leadership, that it certainly wasn't from a political, ambitious end. All I knew was how to serve and how to gather people together and keep focus on the vision of a safe and enjoyable community. So here comes the day where I'm sworn in for the first time at the Lincoln Theater with my husband standing next to me. It was a role reversal. I stood next to him many times as he took the oath of service to the Marine Corps and to our country. So it was a really interesting and pivotal moment for me to take that oath, which I take incredibly seriously. I also embraced the idea of what the responsibility of the executive branch does, and highly respect for what the legislative branch does and what the judiciary does in our three forms of government. it's incredibly important that we understand our lanes as elected officials. When we start crossing lanes or criticizing the other branch without really understanding, I feel like that muddies the waters, it muddies our focus, it muddies what we should be doing in the community. And the responsibility is definitely great. Andy alluded to the fact that in our city, the mayor is actually the city manager. A lot of other cities have hired professional city managers, but your mayor functions as such. So the questions that you want to ask candidates moving forward, think about what their role is. Executives don't set policy, so when you want to know about certain maybe social policies, that's really not their role. Ask mayors how they've led teams, what their success has been, how can they manage budgets, how do they solve problems? And that's super important to know. Ask people running for city council, how do they feel about the budget? What do they want to spend money on? You know, what policies and laws are they interested in? So as this year progresses as an election year countywide, think about questions you want to ask those candidates. So on May 23rd of 2013, this happened. I'm not sure how many of you were in the community at the time, but the bridge fell down. And I'll never forget that first phone call going, no, that can't happen, but it does. And so when you're thrust into that particular leadership position, again, it's all about how many people were injured, what can we do for them, how is the first response going, and all of a sudden the governor is flying in and the senators are flying in, and so it's really banding together and thinking, what do we do for our community first? And the relationships built with other executives, Mayor Sexton in Burlington on this particular incident was crucial for us to work together and think about how we can band together for the best thing for our community. It would also be considered a once in a career type of an event for an elected official. Oh no. There's another once in a lifetime career for elected officials, and leading through something like the COVID pandemic. You know, I don't have to say how stressful it is for me because it was stressful for every single person here, your businesses, your livelihood, your children. But things that the leadership position in cities have to think about is the financial impact. When I took office, we were actually coming out of the recession. Our employees were still on furloughs. We had a real austere budget. And so that's what I instantly thought. How do we protect the city and make decisions extremely quickly so that we don't burn through our our savings account and we don't impact our citizens? So really hard decisions were made on layoffs, restructuring, our banked capacity. Other things that kept me up at night were, what if our police get sick? What if our fire and EMS folks get sick? How do we continue those services? And it's a little bit of a white knuckle on how you think about what could happen. And fortunately, none of that really did happen, but it was something that is the burden of leadership on how to continue. It definitely shapes you as a person. And then when we talk again about the leadership versus politics, I can't tell you enough how the city council and the mayor have formed some very lasting and trusting relationships. It wasn't like that when I started. It was adversarial. It was, let's see how we can get the new mayor to fail. I'll just be honest. But we moved forward and persevered as teams. And so I'm going to go back real quick. Sorry about that. But I want to acknowledge the city council today, the amount of teamwork, the amount of respect, the very significant commitment to nonpartisan issues, and the commitment to the vision of the city have been really instrumental in how the city of Mount Vernon functions today. So it's not always the case. And so I'm hoping that you can have an understanding of how unusual this is to have that collaboration between the legislative and the executive branches. So that I'm really proud of. Valuing our city. So when I took office, it felt like we weren't good enough to have nice things. or we didn't think of ourselves as worthy of investing funding into the city. And so I want to share with you a few approaches that I took that you may not really consciously realize, but you will probably after today. So there's some before and after pictures, and they may seem simple, but when I came from policing, I came from a philosophy of crime prevention through environmental design. That people react to their environments. When you walk into, no offense, if you walk into a Walmart, it's different than walking into Nordstrom. Or when you walk into a physician's office and it's clean and tidy and orderly, you have a different feeling of confidence than if you walked into a business that maybe had been painted for 30 years, or it's just not clean, things like that. So it was something that I noticed with the city. So little things that we changed, I think, make a difference. The picture on the left is the old reader board sign, and I thought we deserved better than some chipped paint on 4x4 posts and a mildewed sign. So we came up with the what you see today. And adding just these small touches makes people feel different, makes people think differently about investment in our city, and I think things like this are really important. The fire department station downtown, Station 1, the top picture is what it looked like when I took office. And I'm like, can we not have a better sign, maybe even indicating what city we're in? And so just, a coat of paint and some lettering, makes a difference in the confidence of your employees and how you're thinking about the environments that they're working in and the success and motivation that you can have when you think about the appearance. This picture, I don't know if you can see too far, but if you remember coming into Mount Vernon and the really ugly, discolored, wall there, that's how they used to build stuff in WashDOT, right? Today, we've added some amenities. This is the very first collaboration with the state, with WashDOT, that allowed us as a city to do something that was low cost, but I think makes a little bit more of a statement than coming into a big, huge blank concrete wall, right? And WashDOT had never thought of that, and so we led the way for other communities to think about what they could do to make their communities just look a little better, right? So I wanted to share just a few things. There's a lot more ideas around this in the city, but maybe you'll notice that now from a different perspective. Public art, to me, is incredibly important. When I took office, there were just a handful of pieces in the city. We've increased that by 5 times in the city. Not only just purchases, but donations. People know that the city values public art. And here in Hillcrest Park, there's multiple pieces donated by a lovely anonymous couple that believed in what we were doing. If you go up top of Little Mountain and see the Guardian that looks out over the valley, these types of things, I think, inspire the creativity and, again, the beauty of things that are around us and are worth investing in. When I took over, facilities seemed to be uninspired. I always feel very important that we maintain what we have, we improve what we have, and that therefore we're increasing the use for our public of the facilities that we have. So here's Hillcrest Lodge. The kitchen used to look like that on the left when I took off. Anyone remember that? I think I walked in and went, what? And so we invested some funding through Hotel Motel and created a small commercial kitchen that is in use today. That's important. We also had, if you remember out here, which you may not, used to be a very cluttered, sort of overgrown, unmaintained Japanese garden, and that was turned into a very usable space for the public to come and have events here and expand the usage of Hillcrest. And that was really important. That's just some examples of things that we've done in our facility space citywide. We're still trying to replace carpet at City Hall, but we'll get there. Equipment. This was something that, in listening to the staff that we brought on board, and they showed me the sort of antiquated type of equipment that we had to increase efficiency and effectiveness. This is one of our, it's not super new anymore, but it's our little space, Vector truck, I call it. It's like zips around like a little space mobile. But this smaller version picked up, oh gosh, didn't write this down, 25% more, I think, than the larger, more clunky, older version of our street sweeper and vector truck. This actually sucks up suction and particles. It's also maneuverable. This picture is on a sidewalk, which we never could get to before. And that sidewalk had been overgrown for years and years. So with our new equipment, so much more efficient. And those ideas come from our staff. I love to listen to staff. This, I'm really proud of this. This is a striper vehicle. When I took office, I was walking down the street one day and I came upon our crews, and they literally had a old wooden paddle, and they're stirring like 400-degree thermoplastic with a paddle. And I'm like, can we do this differently? And they said, well, yes. We actually had a string like on a stick that guided them down the road. God, God bless everyone. But there should be a way to do it a little differently. And so we were able to invest in the striper truck. It could do 2 colors at a time. We can cut down to 4 hours what used to take an entire day. The pre-melts, the thermoplastic is pre-melted, so they don't have to wait for that to be melted. And again, much more efficient, but safe for our employees, and we really value that. All right, when we look at services and service delivery and how the city wants to improve on that for all of you, a perfect example is our library. And Isaac, who's here today, came in and thought about libraries in a much different way and increased programming attendance by 300%, thinking of what programs people are interested in all ages, from teens all the way to adults, super innovative things, free at your public library. And so really, really proud of the work, how to rethink our programming. You may not know, but our library is actually the highest utilized in Skagit County, even though it's the smallest and the oldest, has not been updated since the 80s. And we're going to get to the commons in a minute. But we host 145,000 visits a year. For a city of 37,000 people, that's a lot of service delivery that we have the opportunity to share with our public. We do a lot of electronic or online accessible services as well, which is called through Hoopla, so it's books or DVDs and things like that, and again, all free to the public. How do we provide different types of events to our community? This is Illuminite. Does anyone know what Illuminite is? Have you been? If you've been, awesome. If you haven't, think about attending at the end of January. The idea was January is a really slow time for downtown, and it's dark and it's rainy, and what can be an inspiring event? So meeting with folks like Rochelle Potter, the Downtown Association teamed up, Tri-D, small business downtown, to create luminaries. Oh, why? Sorry, you guys. There. To create luminaries, to have light, and people can create art. They can gather together on a late January evening, maybe have dinner downtown. But if you haven't been and seen the light and the magic of Illuminite, you're missing out. So look for it next year in January, a very unique event to attend. Homelessness and housing, this is something that we, as a small city, never really dealt with prior to, say, 2016. 2017, I see Tina, I remember asking her to gather in a room to say, what's going on? What can we do as a community? So all of the bulleted items you see here are things that have occurred since 2012. Pedestrian interference ordinance, that means there's areas of the city that are dangerous for panhandling, for people to enter the roadway. So we created laws around that. A permanent supported housing project began back in about 2016 and just opened last month. It's Martha's Place on College Way, providing 70 units of housing for chronically homeless individuals. So that took a while to do, but started early ago. We were, I think, the 4th city in the state of Washington to hire a social worker in our police department, and that is behind the cities of Tacoma, Seattle, and Spokane. Your city thought ahead of the need that needed to be there, and we're really proud of that. We have encampment strategies. We hired a full-time person to use an app and drive the city and map encampments, and effectively eliminated long-term encampments in the city of Mount Vernon as a public health risk. A winter shelter, we asked for folks to help out, so a faith community came up and started a winter shelter, and things are beginning around a full-time day shelter. Integrated outreach, I'm going to talk about next, and then also the North Star collaboration, which is the county and the cities sitting down together for the first time in county history to work together and coordinate on homeless and housing issues. I want to talk about iOS and what that means, and this sprung out of our social work program. We looked at our calls for service with our police department and realized about 27% of the calls had relation to mental health and substance abuse and or homelessness. And while police aren't the first folks that should be tasked with mental health and substance abuse disorder, that is how our system has evolved. It's incredibly unfortunate. Our state up until this year has been in the bottom third of states for mental health access to services, and that's now changing with funding, and we're happy about that. But we can't wait for the state to be able to set up programs. So as the city council supported this. This came from our law enforcement, Mount Vernon Police Department. We took our one social worker and we turned it into a department. It's called Integrated Outreach Services. We have outreach specialists, we have case management, and a nurse practitioner, because we could not find access for folks on the street to get into a mental health counselor or someone that could be a prescriber or get even a treatment evaluation. So no one's coming, we're created our own. I don't believe it's something that we should have to do in the long term, but it is something that we took the responsibility as a city to provide because we needed to. And it's funded by grant funding and a stream of funding from the state. We also built it to be expandable. This program could expand to any city in our county, and we're happy to be the ones to help do that and provide those services. Again, the goal is reduction of 27% of our 22,000 calls for service every year. When we talk about fire, this is just something that had been worked on for a long time. We started in 2013. Prior to what you see now for your EMS and ambulance delivery, it was very disjointed. It was incredibly inefficient. It was coming out of a completely separate quasi-governmental agency, and it took, 6 years, 6 years, sorry, gotta do the math right. 6 years of leadership to try and say, we should do things better. And it's a bummer that it took 6 years, but it did. And now your EMS is delivered through the career fire departments in the cities. Most of the population lives in the cities. This is more effective for all of you and provides really, really great service. So the photograph you see on the right is swearing in a whole bunch of new paramedics to serve the city. And the left one I just threw in because that is me. You didn't realize. I got to go to fire ops and pretend to be a firefighter for a day, and that's how you look when you are in a 2,000-degree burning building after you come out. Okay, infrastructure. A lot of folks that are in elected office, they love to build stuff. I love to build stuff, but I'll say it's secondary to building the team and building the people that deliver your service, but this is also great too. By the time that I finish in office in December, we will have completed $100 million of infrastructure here in the city without any increase in property taxes to any of you. And we're really, really proud of that. Some of the funding did come from what's called the Transportation Benefit District, which was voted in. That's a sales tax increase. But in large part, I'm going to talk about a few projects that literally were pretty revolutionary that had no increase to all of you. The Flood Protection Project, for those of you who weren't here back in the day, this is what it looked like, the riverfront, in 2012 when I took office. And the waterfront project itself really spanned several years. The initial design and concept was completed in 2012. 2009. The first phase, which is north of the downtown bridge, the dike work there, that was completed in 2010. And then there were 3 other phases. So when I took office, it was go get some money because we got to build a project. And so we were able to complete the funding of that, and the phases, as you can see, completed in 2015, 2018. And then it took a year of working with FEMA to get that last piece of paper called the Letter of Map Revision that removes significant properties from the floodplain, allowing relief of flood insurance, allowing redevelopment to occur in our downtown. Extremely unusual process and achievement. The city was featured nationwide as a community project and featured in FEMA, and then we've been asked to speak about it in a lot of places around the country. So really pleased about that. The FEMA Letter of Map Revision seemed to get stuck in this bureaucratic cycle in DC, and I think what saved the process was we invited the Region 10 director to come to Mount Vernon. We were doing a tour, we had staff with us, and as we were walking toward a van to do a little field trip, staff jumped in and left the 2 of us in the very back seat, you know, in like big vans where you get stuck in the back. So the 2 of us were sitting laughing about how we're stuck in the back, but we need to get this done. And literally within the next 3 weeks, our letter came through, and we were able to complete our project. So now you see how it is today. And of course, you may have seen how it worked just recently. It's an amazing achievement for the city, and we're super thrilled to be able to provide that public infrastructure. Another piece of infrastructure I thought you may like to know about is the College Way widening under I-5. So this is what it used to look like, and it kind of fades from memory how terrible that was, right? Now that we have capacity. The capacity now allows 25% more traffic through. It was about an $8 million project, and it was sort of stuck. So I started asking questions like, why is this stuck? It's $8 million. And what other things are going on? And the reason why I put Act of Congress in there is because there was some funding that was sitting in a pot for another project that the city probably would never do. And I'm like, well, why can't we just move that money? Like, just move the federal money into this project. And they're like, well, that's an Act of Congress. I'm like, is that hard? And so this is what's great when you're naive, you can ask these crazy questions. But it didn't turn out to be as hard as we thought. And so that $4 million got supplanted in, which allowed us to move forward into this project and complete it. So we're really excited for that. And then that's what it looks like now. Yes. Here is another thing, the heart of the park at Little Mountain. This is the beginning of the construction of the new, the new parking lot. So as you go up into Little Mountain on the right side, you have this large place to park, access to the Bike Skills Center, some restrooms up there. We're really thrilled on that. The reason why I'm showing this is because in the past, the city would not move forward on anything until they found grants, as if using city funding shouldn't be invested in the city and move forward on projects sooner. And this was an example of that. We had funding that had been built up in Parks and Trails Fund. It's like, why are we not using this to actually get things going? So I just wanted to share that a little bit. Defending our city. There's been a lot of things where I've been in a position to defend the city. And I wanted to share one example with you. When I took office, there were plans to put a jail at the entrance to our city, where the 7-Eleven is and the medical clinic is now. And I thought, what? Like, I just didn't understand why that was okay. And if our community actually knew what was happening, I knew that that would not be what they wanted. So I started being very vocal about, no, we can come up with a different place for that jail. And the reason why I'm going to show that is because we had formulated this group to talk about it. And it was county folks and judges and cities. And it was some of those incredibly contentious conversations. It was the judges didn't want to leave the courthouse and things like that. And I'm not trying to be mean or political, but I'm being honest about the conversations that were had and how leaders, when they come up and they stand up and defend their city, can make political enemies and they can be attacked for it. And that's what happened here. So after lots and lots of conversations, I grew a little frustrated. I said, someone give me a flip chart and a pen. And these are the notes that I wrote that moved us on to a funding structure that the cities and the county could share. It allowed something to be constructed. There was an appropriate siting in South Mount Vernon and not at the entrance to the city. And this is one thing that I'm very proud of. And I don't speak of it very much because it's uncomfortable for some, but our city is worth redevelopment and commerce and services. And as leaders, we should be empowered to stand up to make those decisions. Thank you for that. Master plans. We plan stuff and we plan it really well. And it's the most satisfying thing when you can come with a plan that has been vetted by professional and committed staff and that the city council has adopted, and then you get to do stuff on that as the executive. So there's lots of plans that you're gonna see if you visit our website, whether it's sub-area plans, whether it's comprehensive plans around housing, transportation, improvements to fire stations, these types of things. So the city does good planning and we follow them. Examples of good governance. I actually found a little clip that I had done when I was running for office the first time. And I said, I believe that the city of Mount Vernon can be an example of good governance, that we can be not only good for our city, but we can show how government is done right to our county and our state and our country. And we've done that. And it's not just me, it's everyone that works for us has succeeded. So this is just some examples of places that we've spoken about, our fiber optic network, about the flood project, being recognized for the Commons project. And when you do things well in an organization, I think you can relate to this, you'll increase your customers. You have trust. For a government, when you do things well, you attract money. You attract resources. You attract that type of attention. And so we're proud to do that. It's not just, again, the mayor's office. The directors that are here today are responsible for the reputation of the city of Mount Vernon. And it's not saying that we don't have a lot of things to continue to do, but we've been able to build that over 11 and a half years. So now I just want to touch base for a few minutes on a wonderful project. Julie Blazik is here, who is the architectural firm that designed our Mount Vernon Library Commons. So many of you have been supportive, provided letters of support when we're asking for funds. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about where we're at with that. If you have not been downtown lately, take a trip, check out the crane. It's quite the hit. It has lights on it at night, if you didn't know that. But here's what the Commons project is. It is a 4-story structure, okay? Bottom floor is about 30,000 square feet. It is the public library. There is a large community center where a gathering space of up to 300 people for an event downtown. But all the rooms are they can break up and very flexible for meeting space. It has 269 parking stalls, and 76 of those stalls will be have EV chargers in them from day one. We've built that to expand to up to 200 in the future. There are 9 e-bike charging lockers. If you ride an e-bike, you can tootle downtown and charge there. It has a large solar array. It's an all-electric building. There's an outdoor space above the community center. I think it's like 12 to 1,300 square feet, if I remember right. And then there's a lookout on the northwest corner. No, you can't see that. This is online. Visit website if you want to see more detail. This is the bottom floor. On the very left side is the library space. We're having the largest children's library north of Seattle and the only dedicated public library space to STEM education north of Seattle. Super proud of that. The community center is on the right side, And that will include a full-size commercial kitchen, which can be used to service the community space, but also as an entrepreneur incubator. It can provide senior nutrition, cooking classes, all that type of stuff is going to be provided in the building on the bottom floor. This is how the parking structure will look, so we're excited about that. The outdoor space above will have a trellis and some lighting, so folks can go up there and have meetings or enjoy a cup of coffee, things like that. Rendering of the conference space. Rendering of the commercial kitchen. And a few things about the sustainability of this building. Talking about drawing attention, it's the first civic building in the state of Washington built to passive house. And this is just a quick example of what that means. It means that it's so incredibly energy efficient that the little middle graph, just want to show you that. The average library in the state of Washington on a scale of 1 to 100 of energy use is about 66. The current energy codes, if you build anything in the state, you've got to build to an energy usage of about 47, and our structure is estimated to be 12. So not only does that mean that we've built sustainably and environmentally forward, but the energy use in the building cuts the cost of the energy use in the building for taxpayers. And the way the system is it's also incredibly clean air inside the building. So as a shelter for those when there's smoke events, it's a shelter for critical incidents, when there's extreme cold, extreme hot. This building is provided for the health of the occupants to the highest level that we possibly could. The solar array is going to be on the south elevation, and it's about 4.5 tennis courts and I think 13 pickleball. Anyone pickleballers here? Like 13, there you go, 13 pickleball courts, I think, if I can read that right, is about how big the solar array is, and that's about 16 to 18% of the energy needs. And then the one last thing I don't have a slide for, but there was a very deliberate nationwide group that got together and talked about concrete and the mix of concrete. You may know that concrete is a very high carbon producing material, and when you have additives into concrete like slag or ash, you can reduce some of the need for the concrete portions. Our building is achieving just slight of 40% reduction in carbon, embodied carbon in concrete. The mixes that have been formulated are now available to any project in the state, and that's all because of the work of Julie, the design team, to create a climate resilient type of concrete mix. So how do we pay for this? It's a hugely budget process. It is the largest economic development project in the history of Skagit County at about $53.5 million. The jail is the only, speaking of the jail, it's the only project we all spent more on. So, but we're excited to do this. This has been incredibly ambitious. All those relationships, all of the trust in the city of Mount Vernon, the proof that we do things right has led to a combination of funding that will not increase taxes in the city of Mount Vernon. And so that's really, really important for me and for the community to know. This is something that I've been asked to give nationwide lectures on. How in the heck did you guys do this? And so just to give you a quick illustration, you can't read that, but in the federal, we have 3 different federal dollars from different departments in this project. Significant support from the state of Washington. We are after a few more grants that is intended to leave the least amount of debt for the city if we're done. So we're actively after getting this project overfunded. So not to remind everyone, but I am here for 221 more days. And so people may think, well, what do you have to do? And just a couple of things I thought I would say is we have a 3rd and 4th act of Congress that we're trying to achieve. You may remember the first I mentioned. The second one was actually an appropriation from Congresswoman Del Bene to the project, the Commons Project. The third one is an appropriation of Congressmember Larson to the project. And the fourth one is because we are being so innovative, we need an act of Congress in a Buy America waiver. It's a federal program where materials must be manufactured in the United States. Because we're so forward thinking on Passive House specifically, they don't make that stuff in the United States. So we've got this list, and we're going to have to ask for a fourth act of Congress for that Buy America waiver in order to utilize the full amount of federal funding. Those are just a few things that we're working on. But with that, thank you. I'm getting to that finish line. It's been the most incredible honor of my life to serve. I love my job. I just didn't have the energy to be an elected official for another 4 years. So I hope you forgive me for that, understand. But I hope to stay somehow serving in a municipal government capacity somewhere. I don't know if it's state, I don't know if it's county. Don't look for me to be running for office, but I definitely feel like I love what I do and I can contribute further. So thank you for having me. I don't know if we have a few minutes for questions, Andy. If not, fine. But okay, if there's a few questions, I'm happy to answer some questions if you have any. Yeah. Yeah.
I have a personal question.
Oh, okay.
So looking into your crystal ball and thinking of the things that you would like to do more of on a personal basis,
Yes.
sports, hobbies, what does that look like?
So the question was, what do I want to do for fun, right? I've worked since I was 16, so I'm going to try and take a few months off just to get some health back. Lose a little weight and get things back in control. I do love domesticating. I love cooking, things like that. So I'm going to discover things to do. So we'll see. I'm going to try and discover things to do. Yeah, I just took a watercolor class recently over at Parks and Rec. It was great. So, yeah. My kids would also like to see their mom different than I am now. And they're 30 and 26, but still, yeah. So, any other questions there? Ellen?
Just a comment that it's not too late to be a small business owner.
That's right. Yeah. Actually, my mom reminded me of that too. So yeah, thanks. Okay. All right. Well, thank you again. Lots of gratitude to all of you.
We have a fine photographer.
Okay. Okay.
Getting a standing ovation.
Thank you. Thank you so much.